My stepson accused me of ruining his life. But he had no idea what I was protecting him from. I still remember the day he first yelled at me, his eyes burning with anger, voice sharp, accusing me of ruining his life, and I felt a strange mix of heartbreak and frustration because all I ever wanted was to protect him, to love him, to make life easier for him. But somehow everything I did was twisted into blame. Everything I said was proof I was the villain in his story. He slammed the bedroom door behind him, the echo shaking the walls, and I stood there frozen, gripping the edge of the kitchen counter like it could hold me together, and I whispered to myself, I'm not the enemy. I'm just the one who knows the truth. I never asked to be a stepmom, not really. But when I married his father, I thought love would build bridges, not walls. I thought kindness, patience, and understanding would make him see me as someone who cared. But it wasn't like that. From the first day, he looked at me like I was the obstacle. Like every smile I gave, every word of advice, every little thing I did to make him feel safe was a trap, a calculated attempt to ruin him. And tonight, it came to a head. He had just failed a test, missed an opportunity, and I, of course, had tried to help. I had suggested a tutor, offered to review his application, even stayed up late helping him practice speeches he didn't want to give. And what did I get in return? Screams, tears, blame. You ruined everything, he shouted, voice breaking, face red. I would have gotten the scholarship if it weren't for you. I took a deep breath, refusing to raise my voice, refusing to let his anger make me angry. I had learned early that the truth I carried, the secret I had kept for years to protect him, was a weapon against misunderstanding, but only if used carefully. If I said it too soon, it would sound like bragging or control. If I said it too late, it would sound like betrayal. Timing, I thought, is everything. Listen, I said softly, stepping closer. He backed away, fists clenched, shaking like a leaf in a storm. I didn't ruin anything. I've only ever tried to help you, even when it wasn't easy, even when it wasn't convenient. Everything I've done, I did because I wanted the best for you. He laughed bitterly, a sound I could feel in my bones. The best? The best is destroying my life without even knowing it. It was moments like this I wondered if he would ever understand, if he could ever see that sometimes the people who seem like villains are actually the ones fighting for you quietly, secretly, in ways you'll only appreciate years later. I stayed silent after that, letting the truth simmer behind my eyes, letting my heart ache for a child who had no idea I'd been carrying a burden to protect him for years, a burden he didn't know existed, a secret so heavy it could change everything the moment he discovered it. I watched him leave the room, the slamming of the door louder than before, and I whispered to the empty house, someday you'll know. Someday you'll see why I did everything I could, even when you thought I was the one destroying your life. Do you think she really ruined his life, or is he just blaming her unfairly? The next morning, I woke up to an empty house, his father already gone to work, the quiet almost deafening. I brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of applications and forms he had left behind, reminders of the life he was trying to build, or destroy, depending on how you looked at it. I traced my fingers over the papers, thinking about the conversations we'd had, the nights I stayed up comforting him, helping him organize his thoughts, keeping his mistakes from becoming disasters. And still, he saw me as the enemy. I remembered the scholarship he had wanted, the one that slipped through his fingers the previous week. I had spent weeks helping him write the essays, editing until each word reflected his potential. And yet, when the results came in, he lashed out, blaming me for sabotaging everything. My chest ached, but I didn't respond immediately. I had learned over the years that speaking too soon would make me the villain, not the protector. Instead, I picked up my phone and started researching quietly, making notes, pulling together evidence of all the times I'd quietly intervened, missed deadlines I'd reminded him of, opportunities I'd nudged him toward, teachers I'd spoken to on his behalf. Every step I took for him, every obstacle I'd helped him avoid, had been invisible, and every invisible act had been twisted into a reason for his anger. By noon, he stormed back into the house, backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder, face flushed with fury. You don't understand anything, he shouted, dropping his bag on the floor. You've ruined everything for me. I could have had that scholarship, and it's all your fault. I remained calm, pouring myself a second cup of coffee. I let him vent, knowing that every accusation was a piece of the storm he had been brewing for months. And as he raged, I remembered the truth I had hidden all this time, the truth that would explain every misunderstanding, every perceived betrayal, every moment he thought I was against him. I finally spoke, my voice steady but firm. I've never ruined your life, not once. Everything I've done has been to protect you, even when you didn't realize it. There are things you don't know, things I've been keeping from you because I knew you weren't ready. And now your anger is pointing at the wrong person. He froze, confusion flashing across his face. What things? He stammered, his voice lowering, curiosity mixed with lingering anger. I didn't answer immediately. I let him sit in the tension, in the uncertainty. He had spent months assuming the worst of me, building walls, crafting arguments that painted me as the villain. And now, for the first time, the truth had a chance to pierce through those walls. Finally, I looked him in the eyes. You think I've been against you, but everything I did, every intervention, every correction, every silent struggle behind the scenes was to keep you safe, to make sure you had the life you wanted, even when you thought I was destroying it. He stepped back, his anger fading, replaced by a hesitant disbelief. His hands trembled slightly, and I saw for the first time the boy who had been hurt by misunderstanding, the boy who needed me more than he knew, the boy who would soon discover the truth. Would you reveal a secret to protect someone even if it made them angry, or wait until they were ready to understand? He stood there silent, eyes wide like he had just glimpsed a part of the world he didn't know existed, the anger in his chest slowly giving way to confusion. I don't understand, he whispered, voice cracking. Like every accusation he'd thrown at me had finally collided with the truth he hadn't even imagined. I took a careful step closer, keeping my tone gentle but unwavering. You don't understand because you've only seen one side, the side you wanted to believe. You've been blaming me for things you didn't see, for things I had to keep hidden for your own good. His brow furrowed. Hidden? What could you possibly have been hiding from me? I sighed, memories flooding back, nights spent comforting him after a test gone wrong, emails I had sent secretly to teachers to prevent failures, calls to colleges to clarify mistakes, even keeping him away from situations I knew would harm his reputation or confidence. Everything I did, everything I tried to protect him from, had been invisible, and now every invisible act had been twisted in his mind into sabotage. I've been keeping things from you, I admitted, swallowing the lump in my throat. Things that you weren't ready to know, things that would have hurt you if you discovered them too soon. He shook his head, disbelief plain on his face. Why? Why wouldn't you tell me? I trusted you. I thought you were trying to ruin me. I wanted to protect you, I said softly. Every time you got angry at me, it hurt. But I couldn't show you the truth until I was sure you'd understand. I needed you to see that my intentions were never to hurt you. He sank onto the sofa, burying his face in his hands. I stayed standing, letting him absorb the weight of what I had just revealed, letting him feel the enormity of years of misunderstanding, the burden he had carried without knowing the real story. Do you really mean all of this? He asked finally, voice small, unsure, trembling. Everything you did, it wasn't to ruin me? I nodded. I swear. Every choice I made, every correction, every time I intervened quietly, it was because I cared. Because I wanted to make sure you had every chance to succeed, every opportunity to be happy, without realizing I was there supporting you behind the scenes. Tears glistened in his eyes. I never knew, he admitted. I thought you were the reason things went wrong. I hated you for it. And I was wrong. I walked over slowly, sitting beside him, letting him feel my presence without forcing forgiveness. It's okay, I whispered. You needed to blame someone. I understand. But now you know the truth, and you can choose how to move forward. He leaned back, silent for a long moment, letting the truth sink in. His anger had faded, replaced by confusion, disbelief, and a tentative understanding. It wasn't instant forgiveness. I knew that. But it was the first step, the first crack in the wall of resentment he had built for years. Finally, he looked at me, eyes searching. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to fix this. You don't have to say anything right now, I replied gently. Just take it in. Breathe. Understand that everything I did was because I cared. That's all I've ever wanted. How would you react if someone you blamed for years suddenly revealed they were protecting you all along? The house was quiet now, the tension hanging in the air like a fragile thread ready to snap, and I watched him as he tried to process everything, his fists unclenching, shoulders dropping, yet the disbelief still etched on his face. For years he had accused me of ruining his life, but now the truth was finally slipping through the cracks of his anger, revealing the reality he had never imagined. He glanced at the stack of papers on the table, the college forms, emails, notes I had kept hidden to prevent him from panicking or blaming himself for things that weren't his fault. You did all this for me? His voice was soft, almost broken, as if he had finally realized the weight of what I'd been carrying for him, the countless unseen hours, the silent battles fought to protect him from mistakes he didn't even know he could make. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. Every single thing, every night I stayed up late, every phone call I made, every correction or warning, it was to make sure you didn't end up hurt or lost. I couldn't let you see it until I knew you were ready to understand. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing the living room, still trying to wrap his mind around it. I hated you. I hated you for so long, he admitted, voice trembling. And now I feel, I don't know, betrayed, but also relieved. It's complicated, I said softly. I understand. You were angry, scared, and didn't know the truth, and I had to make sure protecting you didn't make things worse. But the truth is out now, and nothing I did was to harm you. He sat down again, looking at me with eyes that seemed older, heavier, like the innocence of misunderstanding had been replaced with the burden of realizing his own mistakes. I thought everything going wrong was because of you. Every argument, every failed opportunity, I blamed you for it all. I wanted someone to be responsible, and I chose you. I know, I whispered, feeling tears prick my eyes, and that's why I stayed silent for so long. I knew one day you'd understand. I couldn't force it. I couldn't make you see it before you were ready. I only hoped that day would come. He looked at me for what felt like the longest moment, searching my face for any sign of anger or resentment, but I gave him none. So, all this time, you were protecting me? His voice was barely audible, almost a question to himself as if he couldn't believe the reality of it. Yes, I said firmly, reaching out to gently touch his hand. Even when you thought I was the enemy? Even when you yelled? Even when you shut me out? I was protecting you. I wanted to make sure your life stayed on track, even when you didn't know it. He sat back, silent, processing, the storm inside him slowly turning into a fragile calm. For the first time, he wasn't accusing me. He wasn't lashing out. He was just absorbing the truth, letting it sink in. And I realized then, this moment, this fragile, shaky understanding, was the turning point. The first real step toward healing? Would you forgive someone immediately if you found out they were protecting you all along? Or would it take time? The next few days were different. He moved through the house quietly, sometimes avoiding eye contact, sometimes stealing glances as if he wasn't sure how to face me without the anger he had carried for so long. I stayed patient, giving him space, letting him come to terms with the truth at his own pace. I knew that trust, once broken or misunderstood, didn't heal overnight. I noticed little changes first. How he lingered at the kitchen counter while I made coffee, how he hesitated before leaving the room instead of storming out, how his shoulders seemed a little lighter, a little less tense. He was thinking, processing, and I could almost feel the wheels turning behind his eyes. He was starting to see what I had been trying to tell him all along. One evening, I found him sitting at the dining table surrounded by college forms and notes, his pencil tapping nervously against the paper. He looked up as I entered the room, and for the first time in months, he smiled. A small, hesitant smile, but a smile nonetheless. I went through some of the things you left me, he said quietly, pointing to a folder of emails and notes. I had no idea. You really were helping me all this time. I sat across from him, keeping my voice gentle. I didn't want you to feel pressured or blamed. I wanted you to have the chance to succeed without realizing I was steering you. He shook his head, still smiling but with a hint of guilt. I can't believe I blamed you for everything. I thought you were against me. I thought you were trying to ruin me. You were angry, and that's normal, I said softly. You didn't have all the information. You couldn't have known. But now you do. And you can choose how to move forward. He nodded slowly, eyes flicking down to his hands. I don't know if I can forgive myself for thinking the worst of you all this time. You don't have to, I replied gently. You just need to understand. Forgiveness is a process, not a single word. We sat in silence for a few moments, just breathing, letting the quiet settle over us. The tension that had been so thick for years was starting to lift, replaced by something fragile but real, understanding. Later, he came to me again, more confident this time. I want to apologize properly, he said, voice steady. For everything I said. Everything I blamed you for. I was wrong. I smiled softly, reaching out to squeeze his shoulder. I know, and that means more than you think. It's not about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about recognizing the truth and choosing to see it. That night, as I watched him go to bed, I realized something powerful. The anger, the blame, the accusations. They had all been part of his journey, and I'd been there silently, guiding, protecting, waiting for him to see the truth. And now he was starting to. I whispered to myself, a soft smile forming on my lips. He finally knows. He finally understands. And maybe, just maybe, we can start over. Would you trust someone again immediately if you found out they were protecting you in secret? Or would it take time to rebuild your relationship? The following morning, I noticed him in the living room, quietly organizing his things for school, and something had shifted. He moved with purpose, a new awareness in his actions, and when he looked up at me, there was a softness in his eyes I hadn't seen in months. The walls he had built with anger and mistrust were crumbling, brick by brick, and it was both beautiful and heartbreaking to watch. Hey, he said quietly, hesitating at the doorway. Can I ask you something? Of course, and I replied, keeping my tone calm and patient. I had learned over the years that forcing answers or forgiveness never worked. He needed to arrive here on his own. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Everything you were doing, all these things you were protecting me from. Why keep it a secret? His voice was tentative, as if afraid the answer might shatter the fragile trust that had just begun to form. I took a deep breath, sitting down on the couch to be at his level. Because you weren't ready. You were angry, you were hurting, and I knew that if I revealed the truth too soon, it would have sounded like manipulation, like I was controlling your life. I wanted to make sure you saw that my intentions were always pure before I told you. He nodded slowly, processing my words. So, you were protecting me all along? Yes, I said, smiling softly, even when it didn't seem like it. Every time I stepped in quietly, every correction, every warning, every call I made behind the scenes, it was to keep you safe, to give you chances you didn't even realize were there. He sank onto the couch beside me, running a hand through his hair. I feel ashamed. I blamed you for everything. I yelled. I hated you in ways I can't even explain. I know, I replied gently. And that's okay. Anger and blame are easy when you don't have all the pieces. What matters now is that you understand, that you know why I did what I did, and that you see it wasn't against you. He stayed silent for a long moment, letting the truth sink in. Then he looked at me, vulnerability finally breaking through his defenses. I want to trust you again, he whispered, but I don't know if I can just yet. I feel like I have to relearn everything about you. That's fair, I said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It's a process, one step at a time. I'm here, and I'll wait for you to catch up. A small, tentative smile appeared on his face. Thank you for not giving up on me even when I hated you. I could never give up on you, I said softly, feeling a wave of relief and hope. You're my stepson, and I love you. I just needed you to see it on your own terms. That evening, as he went to his room to study, I lingered in the living room, thinking about how far we had come. The storm of accusations and resentment hadn't disappeared completely, but the clouds were breaking. And for the first time, I could imagine a future where understanding replaced anger, where love could heal the wounds years of misunderstanding had left behind. I whispered quietly to myself, a mixture of relief and anticipation in my voice. This is just the beginning. He's starting to see the truth, and maybe now we can finally move forward together. Would you start rebuilding trust immediately if someone revealed they'd been protecting you all along? The next few days were strange but comforting. He moved around the house differently, quieter but not in anger, in thought, in contemplation. I noticed him checking his emails more carefully, reviewing notes and sometimes pausing to look at the folders I'd kept for him all these years. It was as if he was slowly discovering the hidden scaffolding of his life, the quiet interventions I had made to guide him, protect him, and sometimes shield him from his own mistakes. One afternoon, he approached me in the kitchen, carrying a notebook he had been working on. I went through some of the things you saved for me, he said, eyes wide, voice soft. I can't believe all this. All the times I thought you were interfering. You were helping. You were keeping me from messing up completely. I smiled gently, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. Relief because finally he was beginning to understand. Sorrow because of all the years lost to misunderstanding, all the nights spent arguing, all the accusations that had left us both drained. Yes, I said softly. I've always been here for you. Even when it seemed like I wasn't. Even when you felt alone or targeted, I was making sure you had every chance to succeed. He shook his head, still staring at the pages in his hands. I feel guilty. I judged you for so long. I accused you of ruining my life. I was wrong, completely wrong. His voice trembled with the weight of the confession. I know, I replied, reaching out to place a hand on his arm. And it's okay. You couldn't have known. What matters is that you understand now, and we can start building a better relationship from here. He looked at me, eyes searching, trying to find the line between apology and forgiveness. I don't even know where to start. I want to fix things, but I feel like I have to rebuild everything from scratch. That's all right, I said, squeezing his shoulder gently. Start with small steps. Acknowledge the truth, learn from it, and be patient with yourself. Trust takes time, and understanding even more. He nodded slowly, taking in my words. There was a quiet determination growing in him now, a willingness to see the world differently, to see me differently. It was fragile, tentative, but real. And it gave me hope that the storm of anger and resentment we had endured could finally pass. That evening, he came into the living room, notebook in hand, and asked, "Can we talk about what happened the day I yelled at you?" I nodded, inviting him to sit beside me. He took a deep breath, gathering courage. "I want to understand everything. I want to know what you've been keeping from me, why you did all of this, and how I can make it right." I smiled softly, a mix of pride and relief washing over me. It's not about making it right all at once. It's about learning, understanding, and moving forward, and I'll guide you every step of the way. For the first time in a long time, he didn't flinch or argue. He listened. He absorbed. He was ready to understand. And I realized then, with a quiet sense of triumph and relief, that this moment, this fragile, tentative connection, was more powerful than any argument, any accusation, any storm we had weathered before. Have you ever blamed someone for years only to discover they were protecting you all along? The following morning, I found him sitting at the dining table, notebook open, pencil in hand, eyes focused but soft, no trace of the rage that had consumed him for months. He looked up when I entered the kitchen, offering a tentative smile that seemed to carry both apology and curiosity. "I've been thinking about everything," he said quietly, voice hesitant but sincere. "About how I treated you, the things I said, the way I blamed you. I realize now, I didn't understand. I thought I was protecting myself by pushing you away, but I see now I was only hurting both of us." I sat down across from him, heart aching and swelling at the same time. "It's okay. You were angry and you didn't know the truth. That's why these misunderstandings happened. What matters is that you're seeing it now." He nodded slowly, flipping through his notebook, stopping at one of the pages I had carefully prepared for him, a timeline of letters, emails, and reminders I had sent secretly to ensure he stayed on track. "I had no idea," he said softly, almost to himself. "I can't believe how much you did for me without me ever knowing. All this, it's overwhelming. I feel guilty. I blamed you for everything, and now I see I was wrong." I reached out, placing my hand over his. "You don't need to feel guilty. You only acted on what you knew. Now that you understand, we can move forward. That's all I've ever wanted, for you to be happy and safe, even when it meant keeping secrets." He leaned back in his chair, taking a deep breath. "I don't know how to make up for all the anger, all the resentment I've carried. I feel like I owe you everything." "You don't owe me anything," I said softly, squeezing his hand. "What matters is that you've learned, that you understand now, and that you're willing to see the truth. That's enough for me." He paused, eyes meeting mine, searching for any sign of judgment or disappointment. I want to trust you again," he admitted quietly. "I want to start over, but I don't know if I can just snap my fingers and it'll be okay." "You don't have to," I reassured him. "Trust isn't rebuilt overnight. It's a process, step by step, and I'll be here every step of the way, guiding you, supporting you, until you feel ready to fully trust me again." A small, tentative smile appeared on his face, one that hinted at hope, understanding, and the beginning of forgiveness. "I think I'm ready to try," he said softly. "I want to understand you, not as the person I blamed, but as someone who's always had my best interests at heart. That's all I've ever wanted," I whispered, feeling tears of relief prick my eyes. "To be understood, to be seen, and for you to know that everything I did was out of love." He leaned back, quiet for a few moments, absorbing the weight of the truth, and in that silence, a bridge began to form, fragile, tentative, but real, connecting us across years of anger, misunderstanding, and resentment. For the first time, I could see a future where our relationship wasn't defined by blame, but by understanding, trust, and the quiet, unwavering love that had been there all along. If you discovered someone you blamed for years had been protecting you the whole time, how would you rebuild your trust with them? Days passed, and our home felt lighter, though the shadows of the past still lingered in quiet corners. He moved with a new awareness, careful with his words, thoughtful with his actions, like he was navigating a landscape he had finally begun to understand. The anger that had once filled every room had softened into something fragile but promising, the first hints of forgiveness and comprehension. One afternoon, he approached me in the living room, holding a folder I had prepared years ago, filled with letters, reminders, and notes, documenting every intervention I'd made to protect him. "I went through all of this," he said, voice low, almost reverent. "I can't believe how much effort you put in, all these years, and I thought you were against me. I feel ashamed." I reached out, taking his hand gently. "You don't need to feel ashamed. You only acted on what you knew. And now that you understand, we can move forward. That's all I've ever wanted, for you to see the truth." He nodded, eyes scanning the documents, lingering on the emails I had sent to his teachers, the notes I had left to guide him, the little reminders that had steered him away from failure. I can't believe I didn't see it. Every time I got angry, every time I blamed you, you were helping me, protecting me, and I hated you for it." "It's okay," I said softly, squeezing his hand. "You had to go through your anger to get here. Understanding doesn't come without struggle, and forgiveness doesn't happen instantly, but you're learning now, and that's what matters." He looked at me, searching my face, as if trying to see if I harbored resentment for his years of accusations. Do you still feel hurt?" he asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. "I was hurt," I admitted. "Of course I was. But my love for you and my desire to protect you was stronger than that hurt. And now, seeing you understand, it's like a weight has lifted for both of us." He swallowed hard, a lump in his throat. "I don't know how to thank you, or even how to fix what I did wrong all these years." "You don't need to fix anything," I said gently. "Just carry this understanding forward. Let it guide how you see me, see yourself, and see our relationship. That's enough." He sat quietly for a moment, taking it in, and then leaned back, a tentative smile forming. "I think I'm finally starting to see, not just what you did, but why you did it. And maybe I can start trusting you fully again." "Yes," I whispered, a tear sliding down my cheek. "Step by step, we'll rebuild it together. And I'll be here every step of the way, guiding you, protecting you, and loving you as I always have." For the first time in years, our home felt like a place of understanding rather than tension, a space where the past could be acknowledged but no longer controlled our present. And in that moment, I realized that the storm had passed. Slowly, painfully, but finally. How would you handle rebuilding a relationship after years of misunderstanding and blame? The days that followed were quiet but filled with small, meaningful moments. He started coming to me for advice instead of shutting me out, asking questions about school, life, and even my own experiences. Every conversation felt like a fragile thread connecting us, slowly weaving a new bond out of the remnants of anger and misunderstanding. One evening, I found him in the kitchen, carefully preparing a snack, humming softly to himself, a sound I hadn't heard in years. "Hey," I said, leaning against the doorway, smiling. "Hey," he replied, eyes meeting mine. No hesitation, no anger, just an openness I hadn't seen before. I wanted to try making something without burning it this time. His small laugh made me chuckle quietly, feeling the warmth of normalcy returning to our home. We sat together, talking about trivial things, school projects, friends, even plans for the weekend. And yet beneath the lightness, there was a deeper understanding, a shared knowledge of what we had endured and how far we had come. He was learning to trust me, to see that my presence in his life had always been a gift, even when it had felt like a burden. Later, as we cleaned up, he paused and looked at me with seriousness. "I want to apologize again," he said, "not just for blaming you, but for all the years I let my anger blind me. I didn't understand, and I acted like you were the enemy. I was wrong." "You don't have to keep apologizing," I replied, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "I know you've realized the truth now. That's enough. What matters is that we move forward together, understanding each other better." He nodded, a small but genuine smile forming. "I think I'm starting to see things differently. I don't hate you anymore. I never should have. And I want to try to make our relationship better, really better." I felt a surge of relief and pride. We will. It won't happen overnight, but step by step. Day by day, we'll rebuild it. And I'll be here, always, guiding you, supporting you, loving you in ways you'll come to understand. That night, as he went to bed, I watched from the doorway, a quiet smile on my face. The storm had finally passed. The anger, the accusations, the misunderstandings, they had all been washed away by truth, patience, and love. And for the first time in years, I felt hope not just for him, but for our relationship, for the bond that could now grow stronger than ever before. I whispered softly to myself, a mix of relief and quiet triumph in my voice. "You finally understand. You finally see the truth. And now, we can start fresh, together, with love, trust, and understanding guiding every step." The journey hadn't been easy. It had been filled with tears, resentment, and heartbreak. But the reward, his understanding, his willingness to rebuild, the fragile but real trust forming between us, made every struggle worth it. And I knew that from this day forward, our relationship would no longer be defined by anger or blame, but by the quiet, unwavering love that had always been there, waiting to be seen. If someone you resented for years revealed they were protecting you all along, would you forgive them immediately or take your time rebuilding trust?